All right, Bengals Titans, very fascinating game. I'm really looking forward to seeing these two teams play. I think two teams that, I'll just say it, I would not have bet on either of these two teams to make the AFC Championship game at the beginning of the season. One of them is going to. Who will that be? Well, let's get into it. So let's look at this chart first. We're going to talk about the Bengals offense, how they match up against the Titans defense, and what you see on the chart is this is where each team ranked in terms of their PFF grade over the year. There's different categories on the left and right, one for the Bengals offense, one for the Titans defense. So the Bengals offense, second best passing unit, and I believe Burrow was actually the best quarterback according to PFF, but there were some other snaps in there, which is why Brady in the Buccaneers were 1 and Cincinnati is 2, but Cincinnati's basically 1. The receiving core for Cincinnati is 3, so the Titans coverage unit 6. Very good stuff there, and the pass blocking and pass rush are relatively even, although worth mentioning, when it's even and low, that typically favors the pass rush, whereas when it's even and really good, that typically favors the pass blocking. So this would favor Tennessee there in the pass rush. But the reality is, this is good on good. This is good coverage on good receiving and good passing. So that should be a very fun matchup. In fact, I would even go as far to say that the strength of Tennessee this season has been their coverage, and the strength of Cincinnati this season has been their receiving core and passing game, so that should be really awesome. The bottom part here, so Cincinnati has ran the ball solidly well, according to PFF, and the Titans' run defense is pretty good, so maybe no major steps that way. Let's look at this statistic here, because this is very notable. So Joe Burrow, when he is blitzed, his passer rating is 122.1, which is third best in football. When he's not blitzed, his passer rating falls to 104, which is actually second best in football. And as you see, the Titans blitz fifth least in football. So basically what I'm saying here is that for Joe Burrow and for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're a better offense when teams blitz them. And again, I know that you can say, well, wait a second, aren't they better in relative to the field when they're not blitzed? And yes, that's true. But the reason for that is because when certain teams are blitzed, there's just more variance. A bad team when they're blitzed is a lot worse than a bad team when they're not blitzed, and a good team when they're blitzed is a lot better than a good team when they're not blitzed, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm pointing to here is the fact that the Titans don't really blitz too much should be a good thing for Tennessee. Although that being said, the Raiders blitzed the least in football, and they were able to beat Cincinnati. So it matters, but it certainly is not an end-all, be-all. Let's get into the film, and the first thing we have to talk about is there isn't exactly film to watch entirely because, these two teams haven't played each other this season. But of course, that doesn't mean that there isn't film to watch at all. Let's look at one like this. Right here, we're going to just use some other games, of course, to help make our opinions on these two teams. So one of the things that the Titans do a decent amount of this season is play a lot of two safety deep coverages, which is, I think, an effective strategy against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a team that they love to try to get one-on-one matchups with Jamar Chase where he can get down the sideline and get touchdowns, right? That's what they love. That's their favorite play. A lot of times when you see cover two, what they do is they run the ball a lot, which can be effective, but you're taking the ball out of your best player's hands when you're doing that, so that's good for Tennessee. And as we already established too, Tennessee's run defense is pretty good, so it's not like they're bad in that category. Look how on this play, Mac Jones is going to take the snap, and, they try to get something underneath. Maybe they could have gotten it a little bit going. It was ruled incomplete, but even if it was, a completion, it wasn't going to be too much. So that's kind of the logic behind it. You're giving up smaller stuff. You're not giving up anything over the top. Make them run a lot of long drives. Eventually, they're going to screw up. Now, going later on in this game, there are ways you can beat this. I mean, this is same coverage. It's going to be quarters coverage, and you can run concepts that can beat quarters coverage. It's not impossible to do by any means. New England, I think, did a great job of that against Tennessee when they had a good amount of success against this Titans defense, largely through these kind of concepts, which the Bengals don't run a ton of, but if they do, they could do it really well because they have several different receivers who can run effective routes, and that's typically what you need against these types of routes. Is it's less about having the one elite guy, but it's having several good guys, which they have. Basically, the way this play works is with one receiver running deep, that pushes the corner back. Another receiver kind of runs a little bit underneath where that corner zone is, and there should be an opening. Watch how when this play begins, you see a play action also helps draw some linebackers in, and at this point, it's Jacoby Myers who is able to get significantly open. So this kind of stuff it can work, and this is probably the best way to beat Tennessee. Like, I think this is probably what Cincinnati should try to do to some degree. New England kind of has set the blueprint a little bit on how you can beat this Titans defense. Maybe not destroy them, but beat them, and that's what I think Cincinnati should do, is use that blueprint and implement it themselves. Now, I want to talk about a play like this, so let's use the other side of the stuff now. So let's look at how I kind of wanted to use New England, because that's one of the few times we've seen a really good receiving core go up against this Tennessee Titans defense, so that's why I used it, and I would say that the Bengals receiving core is better than New England's, even though I think New England's is underrated. But now when you see Cincinnati play a team like San Francisco, who runs a similar scheme to Tennessee, although Tennessee runs it better, what you're going to see here is, I think, very telling. Watch how Burrow takes a snap. Nothing really gets open, so he's just going to hit the check down. That's not a horrible play. You're gaining some yards, but at the same time, you'll totally live with this for Tennessee. Make things difficult on Cincinnati, and quite frankly, if Cincinnati's offense is kind of taken out of the game and to have to settle for just like a solid day, that's a huge win for Tennessee. I mean, Cincinnati's offense has destroyed everybody, it seems, so force them into a position where Burrow doesn't get the ball very much. That's going to be a great situation. Force Burrow to get rid of the football. Although I now want to go over to something like this, because I think this is also I think this is a point in Cincinnati's favor, because basically what you see on the screen, they're showing cover 2, but they're not actually playing cover 2. And I think the fact that Cincinnati is not afraid to do this, even when they see cover 2 on the field, is huge. This is the coverage. It's cover 1 play, so it's going to be a blitz. You have a defensive back who's going to run out and blitz. That's kind of how they're going to fool them a little bit, and a safety picks up the other eligible receiver. The other safety stays deep. But what this means now is that the sidelines could be open. So for Jamar Chase's route right there, this is how this can work. This could be a great situation for Cincinnati. But what I like about this play is that they're expecting a potential disguise. They're ready for this stuff. They're not just saying, they're showing cover 2 a bunch, so no reason having Jamar Chase run go routes. Like, no, still do it, because Tennessee will also do this from time to time, show 2 safety deep, but have 1 drop back. And when that happens, you have to be prepared for Jamar Chase. Watch how when Burrow takes the snap, you're going to see that Chase is going to get open. Burrow makes a tremendous throw, and they're able to get a big completion right there. So basically for Tennessee, never do this. Never once at any point give Jamar Chase a one-on-one matchup. You have to realize that at any point Jamar Chase has a one-on-one matchup on the sideline, he could score a touchdown. That's a legitimate risk you're taking every time you do that. So all right, here's my final prediction for this side of the ball. I'll talk about the other side of the ball and give my final score prediction for the entire game in a video I should upload either later today or tomorrow, talking about Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and all that stuff. But for this game, first, let's talk about season averages. Cincinnati scores 2.4 points per drive on the year. Tennessee gives up 1.96 points per drive on the year. My prediction, Cincinnati scores 2.4 points per drive on 9 drives, which would be 22 points. My reasoning is I do think Cincinnati has done a lot of good stuff this, late in the season. They're a different team now than they were earlier on in the season. I think that there's no denying that. You could argue they're a different team now than they were against the San Francisco 49ers, even though that wasn't too long ago. However, Tennessee does a very good job of playing defense, so I do think that, and they match up well against Cincinnati on top of it. I think Cincinnati will have an average Cincinnati Bengals day, but kind of, only because I actually think that the average Cincinnati Bengals day now is better than a 2.4 points per drive team, but I also think that Tennessee will be able to hold them a little bit lower. So that's kind of why I have them there. So yeah, that's my logic. Will it be enough to pull off the upset and beat the number 1 seeded Tennessee Titans, who the last time the Titans were the number 1 seed, they lost to the Joe Flacco-led Ravens? Will that happen again with another, not rookie quarterback, but young quarterback, because Flacco was a rookie then? But could that happen with another young quarterback also out of the AFC North? Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I think about this game. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.